We're back, Mike Pesce.
What's up, Ron? How are you?
I'm good. This is like 4 or 5 weeks in a row.
Yes.
We're
fun.
streaking.
Hitting our stride, hopefully.
That's the plan. Pump out the content. Today, we wanted to discuss the news that's been released regarding New York being opened up again.
Yes. So I forget the exact date. I think it's May 18th or 19th. Cuomo just announced he's lifting all of the capacity restrictions on almost all businesses.
Yep.
Which is good. Definitely a step in the right direction as we get closer to summer.
Very good. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that this is the result of... By the way, talk about Teflon. This guy was caught in every sexual scandal known to man.
Right.
And nothing happens to him.
It just went away. I haven't even heard about that. Is anything still going on with
it? Because it's a complete joke. How does he attack people, and the Democratic Party attack people? Then when he's caught red-handed and like 15 women come forward, nothing.
I don't know. I'd have to look into it. I think there's probably still an investigation underway, but yeah, it's amazing that he just refused to resign. And now it's just gone away. There's other news, in the world that the media's picked up other stories.
I think there's only one person I hate more than him. It's his brother.
Yes.
And both of them together can fucking burn in hell. I mean,
right.
they're just, I can't stand them. But anyway, I digress. New York reopening. What does it mean for New York? Does New York snap back?
No.
Or does New York take a few years to get back to normal?
I think it definitely takes a few years. There's no way you could just snap back from that.
Right.
Also, they're lifting all capacity restrictions, but they're maintaining the 6 feet social distancing. So it's kind of like a bullshit, you know what I mean, thing.
I think in the end, when it comes to New York, it's just too stacked up vertical. It's just too much of a vertical city. There's other cities out there, and it's funny. I didn't even realize this until I started traveling in my early 20s, going from like meeting to meeting with work. And New York City is the only city like New York City. It's so vertical. Everyone's on top of each other. You go to like a Midwest city like San Antonio. It doesn't look like a city to us. Or if you go to Houston, or if you go to any of these cities that you would think, coming from New York, your expectation of what a city is
right.
just very, very different than what a city actually is.
Nothing else. If you grow up in New York and you're thinking New York City, and then you go to another big city, whatever, like you said, Houston, Boston, whatever, pick a city, and you show up and you're like this, you're very underwhelmed.
Yes.
Because New York's the biggest city in the world.
Yes, I totally agree. The only city that I think somewhat compares, and I spent a short period of time there. It's still not as crazy, but I felt like I was in a big metropolis when I was in Chicago.
I've never been to Chicago.
Oh, it's sick. It's sick because there's rivers that run through it because it's right on the water.
Right.
Deep dish pizza, all that. But they've got, what is that, the Sears Towers there. They've got some big architectural buildings there. But my question is what happens with all the office space? I mean, that I think is the biggest juggernaut, especially when it comes to real estate in the city. I was with a gentleman yesterday who works for Price Waterhouse, and he used to commute to the city all the time. And they're releasing a new way of commuting to the city, or what their plans are going to be, because they're starting to sort of reinstate certain things. And half the company is permanently home, and the other half of the company is at max like a 3-day work week.
Right.
So I guess they're going to be rotating people as to what days they come in and what days they don't. But that means ultimately that they need far less office space. So how do landlords in the city repurpose that space is the real question.
I don't know. I think a lot of companies, they'll also see it as a buying opportunity. A lot of big companies with the money look at it as, I mean, listen, I could get New York City office space, lease it at 25, 50% discounts.
Yeah.
You know?
See, I think there's two scenarios. One, it takes a long time for the office environment to be considered a safe environment again, and companies don't have liability having people come to work.
Right.
And then you would see us return back to pre-COVID, commuting to the city, everybody, working on top of each other again.
Right.
If we never return to that, I'd say 40% at a minimum of all the office space in every city across the country needs to be repurposed. And what does it get repurposed as? I think it turns into some kind of affordable housing or luxury housing. And I think the government will partner, both local and federal, will partner with landlords to make that happen because there is a housing shortage. You agree?
So a housing shortage, but we always talk about all of the, the ghost inventory? What's the word for all the
shadow inventory?
All the shadow inventory in New York City, right? So is there really a housing shortage in New York City?
There is an affordable housing shortage. Yes, these condos and these high rises and these new developments where everything's selling for multi-millions, 100% there was a shortage there.
Right.
Which is why there was shadow inventory. But is there a shortage of affordable housing? If you had $500, $600, $750, $800,000 apartments that you could throw people in who qualify, like a Section 8 situation, right? Is that where this is going? And I think obviously to be determined. No one has a crystal ball. No one knows. But if I had to put my finger on it, I would say that's exactly where we're headed.
I don't know what's going to happen to all the office space. I don't know. Some of it can become affordable housing, but then how is that affordable housing paid for? Like you mentioned, Section 8.
It's got to be subsidized by the government.
Right. So if it's subsidized by the government, now you have the government is providing revenues for a lot of businesses, which is just a scary situation.
It already happens, though. It already happens with Section 8 tenants, right?
Right. But you want to increase that.
How many Section 8 tenants are there in the entire country?
I have no idea. But if you take all that empty office space and repurpose it for, low-income housing that's subsidized by the government, you essentially now have all these landlords are essentially employed by the government.
The other thing is there's an issue right now of inventory that if people leave a unit, the landlord is no longer incentivized to fix the unit up and re-rent it because you're not allowed to raise the rents on units to a certain amount. So let's say hypothetically you're renting out something for $3,000 a month and it's an old unit, right? When that tenant moves out, technically you were incentivized by the city. I forget exactly what it was called. You could look it up, but there was an incentivization by the city for the landlord to go in, renovate it, and a certain percentage of the money that they put into the unit they can tack onto the monthly rent.
Right.
And now they can't do that.
They also, just on a different topic, the New York legislature just extended the eviction moratorium for rental tenants, they extended it till the end of August.
Oh, God.
Because the federal moratorium was, up in June or something? June 20th?
I still am so curious. What happens with that?
I have no idea.
That, to me, is a few things. That is that when that chicken comes home to roost, that's going to flip the market on its head. That's going to take this market that everyone's dealing with low inventory and change it completely. But if the government allows it to just happen the way it should happen naturally with no intervention, what you're going to see is a massive, like 2008, 2009, maybe complete financial crisis again all over. Because they keep talking about everybody's got equity, everyone's got equity. Well, everyone's got equity.
Tenants. tenants they didn't.
Yeah, but so what are they doing with
tenants
landlords?
Have no equity.
What are they doing with landlords? Same thing. End of June still.
No. This is people renting in New York. The New York legislature just extended the moratorium for rentals only. Is my understanding until the end of August. Yeah. So I don't know. So landlords still can't. If a tenant's not paying rent, they still can't do anything till the end of August.
That's crazy.
I don't know what the landlords. I don't know if the landlords are getting any help. I think they can apply for some type of help, but I don't think if you just think about it, they can't. The midterm elections are in 2022. I mean, from a political standpoint, they probably can't afford to end the eviction moratorium before the midterm elections.
No.
Right? It would just
they'll lose what is probably a large majority of the base that's voting for them, right?
It's going to piss them off.
You have to figure landlords probably lean Republican, and there's a lot less landlords than there are tenants. So if they kicked everyone out, or if they allowed that to happen, you're looking at losing a lot of votes.
Yeah, think of a building in the city. How many people live in a building in the city compared to how many people own that building?
Isn't it sick that everything is tied back to politics?
And money. Yeah, politics.
Politics and money.
Power and money.
Politics, power, and money.
It always gets me like Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, like they're lifelong public servants where the salaries are, at most maybe, I don't know, a couple $100,000 a year. Yet they're like super rich, like Nancy, like worth like, tens of millions or hundreds of millions.
So as I understand it, the way that happens is when they're in office, they're not making money. When they leave, they go on speaking circuits.
But not Nancy, like Nancy Pelosi's worth like $250 million. She's been in office forever.
Yeah, she's just a criminal.
Right, but no, it's so obvious, yet they just get away with it. How, why are they allowed to get away with it?
Ultimately, in the end, it's a broken system.
Right.
That's just what it seems like to me.
But so getting back to, so I think that's one option is affordable. I think. Listen, there's going to be no single solution for all this vacant space. It's not like any one scenario, but I think some affordable housing. I think another area is just warehouse space. Now with e-commerce just becoming what it is, like Amazon, right? If Amazon wants to do same-day deliveries, well, they have to have just warehouses that are local enough to get you the product same day, right? If the warehouse is in, I'm just making it up, or if the warehouse is in Colorado, it's impossible for someone in New York to get a same-day delivery. But if you have warehouses in Nassau, in Suffolk, if you utilize some of that empty space in New York City, right?
How do you put a warehouse though on the 50th floor of a skyscraper?
Well, they're going to be doing drone deliveries. I don't know. Listen, there's a lot to figure out. You know
How about
what I mean?
that? What if there was such thing as warehouse space, because everything became drone deliveries, right? So the drone could fly right into like a 50th floor.
Right.
Pick up a package.
They might be able to do something like, listen, we're gonna use the office space on the 50th floor for warehouse space, right? And Amazon's gonna install 4 industrial elevators to take everything up and down, or you know what I mean? So who knows? I think there's probably a solution that you could figure out.
It's so funny. I don't know why this just popped in my head. I think it's because you said Amazon. I thought of Bezos, and then I started thinking about Bill Gates. You see, he just got divorced.
That's crazy. I bet there's a story. I bet she knows something happened.
You think so?
Yeah, like, all right, if you're a conspiracy, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but just to have some fun, if you're a conspiracy theorist, like she found out he's profiting, he caused the pandemic to profit off of it, and now she's done with him, Or like everything going on with Epstein and all the rich people.
Wasn't he involved with Epstein on some level?
I think like just about every rich, powerful person had like some type of connection to Epstein, from Bill Clinton.
Did you ever see the documentary?
Yes.
On
well,
Netflix?
Which one? I saw it.
There was one on Netflix. It showed you like his house. It described like what he did. A few of the women who were abused were interviewed. It's just sick. People live such sick, sadistic lives.
It's crazy.
And then how do you wrap in Bill Gates? I mean, and all these other people, right? Like these high-end, powerful people that you would never, ever, ever assume were nefarious enough to even be involved with someone like that, right?
But they weren't.
They somehow were. Especially Clinton. Clinton loved it. He was on the Pony. Was it the Pony Express? They call it or some shit.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. They flew down to that island like 12 times together.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you could definitely see like you could definitely if you want to believe in that stuff, you could totally make a very valid and logical case.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, with all the circumstantial evidence and whatever else.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah. So I think warehouse space is a possibility. I don't know, but I think a lot of companies are going to buy it up. But the bigger thing is, right, so even if you make use of the space, but it's part of what fueled the city was just having all the people in there. Because when you have all the people, you have all the commerce. They go to lunch,
right.
They buy things, they use the transportation, the MTA, the sub. So even if now this space, say Amazon comes in or Facebook or whatever and says, office space is at a 25% discount. We're just going to buy it, but they're just holding it. They're not going to fill it right away. You still don't have all the people. So it's still, the city is going to take a long time to get back on its feet because so much of the city was built on just the, just luxury and leisure, business of just enjoying yourself.
Well, then those neighborhoods become repurposed, right? I mean, think about it. There was a time when like Southern Manhattan was all industrial,
mm-hmm.
and then they came in and they repurposed all those buildings, and now they've gone from a factory building
mm-hmm.
to these gorgeous luxury properties,
right? Or even like you just made me think of it, but like marijuana is now legal, so maybe it's some type of it's going to be space for like I don't even know what you call it, urban farming or something, just marijuana or just other types of plants and vegetables that you can grow in the buildings.
Well, they're starting to do that vertical farming.
Right.
Yeah, doing a lot of that stuff. But I can't see. I mean, could you imagine a world where vertical farming weed, just vertical like a skyscraper with pot?
I could see
all
it
on the side of it.
I could see them building like they're gonna build like the next 432 Park Ave, like next Empire State Building, more well known. And it's a weed building. It's going to be called like, Cannabis Central or something, something stupid like Cannabis Tower.
That would be so
and
sick.
It's a big weed farm.
That would be nuts. I mean, that's where we're headed. Nuts. So what else? What's going on with listings? What's going on with business? Anything new in the world? You got a fake pre-approval the other day? What was it? A fake...
all cash proof of funds.
Fake all cash proof of funds.
It was real. It just didn't belong to the buyers that submitted it. It wasn't their... I mean, I'm assuming it was someone's bank account. It just wasn't their bank account. So...
Yeah, that's
but
sick.
They're claiming they didn't know any better their first time home, which I believe. It's... Some people nowadays that are like 30 plus years old that have good jobs, make good money, they're just idiots. It's like a different world. They're just so, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like sheltered from real life.
You think
and like the harshness of the real world.
So do you actually think that a huge portion of the what do you call them? Millennials, and then there's Gen Z, right? Gen Z is then after the millennials. You really think that they're that sheltered and coddled that they don't understand that there's repercussions for actions? Lying.
Yeah, well, they didn't. I don't think they knew. So they were the way listen. They could be lying, but I think they were being honest. They had a mortgage broker who was a shady mortgage broker, and told them, listen, submit the offer all cash. And I don't know the exact details, but basically something along the lines of submit the offer all cash.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get an accepted offer, I'll get you the mortgage. If I can't, for any reason, get you the mortgage, I'll cover the money you had in escrow, your money you put down on contract.
Yeah.
Somehow that was the conversation. I think they thought, like, okay, this is how it is. And they just trusted the people, the team around them, which was a bad, shady team.
Yeah.
But again, you have to be a certain level. There's a certain level like naiveness there.
Naivete.
Naivete, yes.
That's the word.
To even go along with that.
Oh, God. We have a lot of news here. I actually want to go through some because some of it was interesting. We'll go through it. We'll have some good little dialogue around it, and we'll keep this thing moving. So, would-be sellers. I've never seen this word before. Reticence.
I don't know.
Never seen this word before. Would-be is probably some writer who just wanted to be smart.
Reticence.
Look it up in some kind of like. What is that word of? Reticence. Reticence.
I think like hesitation, probably.
Okay. Would-be sellers' reticence depresses housing supply.
Like their hesitations.
Gotcha. Home prices have made double-digit annual gains, and homeowners are seeing equity surge. So why aren't more homeowners taking advantage by selling? Homes.com recently surveyed 5,000 of its online visitors to find out what's holding potential sellers back and contributing to the nationwide inventory listing shortage. After all, 76% of respondents not selling their homes reported they were actively searching for a new home. Mm-hmm. That's kind of an interesting statistic, right? 76% of respondents that are not selling their houses reported they were actively searching for a new home. Mm-hmm. That also goes back to all sellers are buyers, and like people who land on the website are usually also looking to
all
sell.
buyers are sellers.
The top motivators respondents said that would get them to list and sell are 60.2% said that the securing their next home before selling. Yep. That's the biggest thing, right? We talk to people, and what's the first thing they say?
I don't know where to go.
Mm-hmm. So no one we've ever dealt with ended up homeless.
No.
So what is it? Is it just basically that, people have to take a leap of faith? Do they have to just kind of, do they have to have something locked up, or...
We've said it many times. I mean, most people can't afford to purchase their next home. If you can afford to own two homes at once, then fine. Then go find your next home, buy it, and sell your current home. But most people can't afford to do that. They need to sell the current home first to be able to purchase the next home. They just can't afford to. So, yes, so in order to do that, it is to a certain extent a leap of faith. But really, everyone always has a backup plan. Like if I haven't met anyone that just goes, all right, I'm going to sell my house if I don't find something to buy. Like I'm literally screwed. Most people have a friend or family member to go stay with. They can find something to rent, or in all reality, they just don't close on their sale. Then, maybe they were supposed to close in 60 days, but now it's 120 days out.
So that happens a lot in a primary market, right? Like the one that we're in, where mm-hmm. people, this is where they live and raise their families. This is, I'm assuming, less important in a secondary market.
Even in a secondary market, though, I'm curious. I don't know the answer. Like, we always talk about South Florida. What percentage of homes are secondary homes versus primary homes? Is it like 50-50, or is it like, is the secondary market still like the overwhelming majority of homes are primary?
I think it's starting to change, because I think there's a lot of there's a lot of people that are moving their lives down there. Mm-hmm. So that's starting to change, but I think it was definitely weighted towards more of a transient market.
So the majority of homes are secondary homes.
Yeah, I think so. Or investment properties that people Verbo or Airbnb.
Well, in a market like that, there shouldn't be, like in Florida, there's a housing shortage because everyone's moving down there because it's more attractive for economic and political reasons for many people.
Yeah.
But that aside, or if that didn't exist, would there be a short? Is there a transient market? I wonder, is there a transient market where there's not a shortage of homes because people don't have the main issue of needing to find some place to go before they sell?
Yeah, I wonder.
Like the Hamptons might be a good example, because the Hamptons it doesn't have the economic and political advantages that Florida has, which is why people are moving there. And it's mostly a transient market. But I still think there's a shortage of supply there too.
Yeah. Well, because why? Because people are making crazy money off rents out there. So why would you? And the taxes are very low. So why would you ever sell?
Right.
I think it's an investment vehicle for people out there. They buy and sell homes like stock.
Right.
No different. They just can use it. They could use it for a weekend or a week or a month out of the summer, and every other day of the year, it could make them money. Mm-hmm. So then why sell at that point?
Right.
The motivation goes away. 16.2% would move if they knew their current home could sell for asking price or top market price. Well, that's a 16.2%.
That should put the house on the market because the answer is it's like yes, pretty much yes.
Morons. 14.7% said they would sell if they could get an offer without their home requiring any work or updates. Of course you could. You just have to lower the price.
Yeah, so right there between the last two, 30% of those people, that's a bullshit excuse.
And then 8.9% said they'd move if they could have a quick closing process. Well, find an all-cash buyer.
Yeah, so really 38% of the market has no excuse to not sell their home.
Yeah.
They're just poorly informed, I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean, most people don't do it for a living, right? Realtors argue against eviction moratorium in court. This is interesting. So the National Association of Realtors was an industry and national leader in the push to secure rental assistance funding when the pandemic began last March. Mm-hmm. The association and the industry scored a major victory for housing providers and tenants when Congress allocated $50 billion in funding in two separate federal laws passed this winter, but slow disbursement of these funds continues to put a strain on America's tenants and property owners. Recognizing the potential far-reaching impact of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's eviction moratorium, NAR has supported a legal challenge by the Alabama and Georgia State Realtors Associations and two housing providers. In this case, which was heard before D.C. on Thursday, the plaintiffs challenged the CDC's authority to issue the moratorium and said the government is imposing on rights of property owners. The plaintiffs argued that the CDC is not permitted to regulate the national economy. Remember we talked about this,
right.
The CDC?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird that order came from the CDC. This case comes from the heels of several other recent cases where courts have held CDC's actions were unlawful, but which only afforded relief to respective lawsuits, individuals, parties. Today's case represents a more comprehensive approach with the potential to provide national relief for housing providers across the country. So, and then they go on to say, no businesses can survive while foregoing steady income for a year. NAR President Charlie Opler says, if mom and pop property owners are put in a position where they can no longer sustain their small businesses, every tenant living there would be left without a proper home. Broad nationwide eviction moratoriums don't serve a necessary purpose, and the government's continued enforcement will only jeopardize the long-term health of America's housing market. So yeah, there you go. This is kind of crazy. I think the only way to solve this is government has to start paying landlords.
No, or listen, I think there's a lot of different solutions, but don't start paying landlords. Is if you need help because you lost your job due to the pandemic, right? You should be able to submit documentation for financial help, and the government, we're passing all sorts of stimulus bills as a result of the pandemic. The government, yes, they should pay the landlord on behalf of that tenant.
Yeah, because if you abruptly end this, if it just abruptly, if they just let the shit hit the fan and don't do anything about it, and they don't land this plane, they call it Dalio called it something once. He called it like a nice landing or something like that. Like you have this plane that's spinning out of control, sort of. You got to land it nicely, and if you could do that, there's an ease to it by funding, tenants and landlords and everything. But then you're also incentivizing people to not go out and work.
It's the government. The problem is the government makes bad policy to start with. It was a bad policy to say, right? So what's the problem? People are like, oh my God, I'm not going to have anywhere to live. I can't afford to pay my rent. So the government goes, all right, this is the solution. We're going to just put a blanket eviction moratorium in place. Well, that's a bad solution. That's a bad policy. That you're not treating the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is these people are going to know to live because they lost their jobs due to the pandemic and they're not making any money, right? Yep. So that's the problem you have to find a solution to, not making it possible to kick them out.
Yeah. So this is interesting. It just shows that the market's getting tighter and tighter. Despite housing shortages, contract signings climb. Pending home sales climbed in March following 2 months of declines that were mostly blamed on lack of homes for sale. The National Association of Realtors reported Thursday. Home buyer demand remains high, but inventory constraints continue to push on sales potential. NAR's pending home sales index, a forward-looking indicator of homes based on contract signings, increased 1.9% in March and posted a 23.3% year-over-year gain. Part of a double-digit annual increase is due to the comparison of March 2020 when COVID-19 lockdowns began. And then they break down Northeast, Midwest, South, and West. Contract signings in the Northeast increased 6.1% last month, marking a 16.7% increase compared to a year ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no signs of buyers slowing down.
Well, I think in
purchases in this market, which is completely insane to me.
Well, they break it down further because in the Northeast, right, you have a lot of big cities, New York, Boston, things like that. So in those cities, a lot of people were renting, and now they're leaving the city, they're buying. So I think that's what's causing it. Are the numbers lower?
The Midwest pending home sales eased 3.7% last month, but remain up 14.1% compared to a year ago.
Right. So that makes sense.
Because they weren't as shut down though as we were.
Well, there's less big cities. You have less people moving from a rental situation to what's like in big cities to what is more likely an ownership situation in the suburbs. And they're up 14% from a year ago because a year ago we were locked down.
Yeah. The South. Contract signings rose 2.9% in March, up 27.9% compared to a year ago.
Right. But a year ago we were locked down.
Yeah.
The whole country was locked down in March, April of last year.
Yeah. And then the West, pending home sales increased 2.9%, marking a nearly 30% gain compared to a year earlier. So something's got to give. Something's got to give. Something's got to slow down the buyer's eagerness to buy, and at the same time, we need more inventory.
Well, right now, buyers can still, once prices hit a point that buyers can no longer afford or not willing to pay, it'll slow down, I guess. Yep. I guess we just haven't hit that point yet.
Yep. Intense competition leads to fastest sales ever. So homes are selling in record time at an average of 43 days, 20 days fewer than a year ago, according to Realtor.com. The market is experiencing intense buyer competition, though though inventory opened up slightly in April as more sellers started to list their homes. New listings, however, are still nearly 26% below pre-pandemic levels. In some parts of the country, listings are going from just listed to sold in what seems to look like a blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're looking at, here's where homes sold fastest on average this month. In Denver, 15 days was the average days on market. Mm-hmm. Columbus, Ohio, 16 days. Austin, Texas, 18 days.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
It's pretty nuts. Let's see. They have a grid here. Let's see if they have any New York reports on here. Well, they have Rochester, but that's a different world. Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts.
So Long Island's not in the top though for least days on market.
No, I don't think they did it by that. They just grabbed. I mean, New York, New Jersey. So look right here. Median listing price is up 9.3%. The median listing price here is $629,000, which is very high compared to the rest. Median days on market, 13.
For New York?
For New York.
Well, the whole state.
New York, Newark, New Jersey, Jersey City, New York, New Jersey, PA.
So you basically go from listed to in contract in less than 2 weeks.
Yep. Median days on market is 67. Mm-hmm. New listing count year over year is up 175%. Active listing accounts down 20%. Crazy.
That brings up, it gets me thinking, because you mentioned before home prices are up too. So you have, just a question I understand. You have home prices are up double digits year over year. You have gas prices up you have, building supplies up, but yet the Fed's saying that we're below their 2% inflation benchmark. How does that make sense?
The numbers are cooked, just like on Wall Street, dude. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I worked in corporate America, the shit that would take place towards the end of the year, in the last 3 months of the year, for management to get to their numbers and hit their quota, everyone was cooking the books. It was just pure fraud.
Yeah, it's bullshit. There's no way the price of everything could be going up, but yet you're saying inflation is below its 2% benchmark. It doesn't make any sense.
How about this? Americans' sky-high savings to make spring market even hotter.
Well, that's
so apparently everyone's got money. So many American households are feeling richer sitting on the nest egg they've built during the pandemic. Those savings may be released into the economy in the new spending this spring and summer, which will bode well for the already surging housing market. Personal savings increased to a 21% annual rate for the first quarter this year. So I thought we were in a pandemic, people were hurting, and everything was going to shit. But apparently people are saving money hand over fist.
Well, it makes sense. I understand that because most people spend their money on going out to eat, going to sporting events, concerts, going on vacation, whatever, going to movies, things like that. When the pandemic was happening, no one was doing any of that stuff. So they weren't spending the money, so they were saving it. So for the people that stayed employed, their savings have skyrocketed because they continued to make money, but they weren't spending it. It's more for the people that, and then for the people that didn't stay employed. I mean, they were collecting unemployment insurance, and getting stimulus checks. So I guess I understand it.
It says consumers have lots of cash available thanks to stimulus and extremely high savings, and will be looking to spend, especially on services. Rising vaccination rates and greater willingness to go out in public will also support consumer spending. It's interesting. I just wouldn't think that people were in such a good position at this point in time. And then to compound that, mortgage rates stayed under 3% for another week. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's more fuel on the fire right now. 30-year fixed mortgages average 2.98% with an average of 0.7%, rising slightly from last week's 2.97% average. Last year, this time, 30-year rates were at 3.23.
It's crazy. But so I guess stock market, everything's just going to keep going up because people got money to spend.
Yeah. This is interesting. What people love and hate about their houses. It's one of those like stupid articles, but I thought it was interesting. What people love about their houses, most important, security and safety.
Okay.
Location. A section of the home dedicated to relaxation, privacy, size, and living situation. Housemates. Mm-hmm. An outdoor space.
Okay. What do they hate?
What do they hate? Which one of those is most important to you, by the way?
I want to be secure and safe in my house, but was that having a security system? Like that doesn't.
No, I don't give a shit about that.
I guess
that basically means you don't live in the hood.
Yeah, for sure, location, and I would say location and size, because size, then you can have like your office, you can have some gym, whatever, you have a space.
I agree with that.
I like to have space.
So you're the kind of guy that would live in like a 10,000 square foot house.
I don't find 10,000. I think I've said it many times before. I think like 5,000, maybe 6,000 would be like my perfect size house.
So what people don't like: noise level, size, proximity to neighbors and other homes. That's big for me. Mm-hmm. After moving up to Dix Hills, there's something to having space.
Yes.
It's being spaced out from neighbors. Pests, design choices, lack of privacy, lack of outdoor space. Yeah, privacy. It's all about. I like the privacy.
And having everything comes down to space.
Yep. So going back to inflation, soaring lumber prices add $36,000 to the average new home price. Now, when they talk about an average home, you're lumping in everything in the Midwest, so it probably adds at least $100K to a house in New York. You'd have to think, right? Mm-hmm. Because the houses are bigger.
That's going to affect new builds too, new construction, and just new supply.
Lumber prices are up 340% compared to a year ago.
Right, but there's no inflation. We're below the 2% benchmark.
I don't get it. Stupid. Buyers who purchase newly constructed homes are paying more, not only because of intense competition in the market, but also soaring lumber prices. Record-breaking growth for the cost of lumber is pressing on builders' budgets and prompting them to pass along price increases to buyers. Yeah, the increase in lumber prices has added $36,000 to the price of the average new single-family home and $13,000 to the price of the average new multifamily home. The latter translates to an extra $119 per month in rent for apartment dwellers, according to housing data.
Right. It's like 10%. If the average home sale in the country is like 300, 350, it's like it's adding 10%.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Yeah. It's going to cause a problem. I mean, listen, we haven't afforded... but then again, everyone's got all the savings in the world, according to the other articles. So I don't even know what to think anymore.
Well, we're going to go through a period of hyperinflation. It's the only thing. I mean, how else do you just calculate,
How else do you keep up? Well, right. Here's the thing, too. Salaries haven't really changed much.
They're not going up 350% like lumber prices.
Companies aren't going to be willing to pay.
No.
Going to be interesting. So last article. YouTubers spotlight luxury homes, help drive demand. I'm curious to know your thoughts here. YouTubers, both amateur and professional, are turning to real estate, making videos that offer a look inside the mansions of the ultra-wealthy. Enes Yilmazer, who has more than 820,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, posts tours of some of the priciest homes in the country. From penthouses on New York's Billionaires Row to waterfront mansions on Lake Tahoe in Nevada and California.
Right.
His videos garner millions of views and tens of thousands of comments. YouTubers focus on such properties is shining a brighter light on the high-end market. They are making YouTube an increasingly important market channel for even the most privacy-obsessed home sellers and their real estate agents, the Wall Street Journal reports. That's been particularly evident over the past year as the COVID pandemic reduced the number of buyers willing to tour homes in person. Some real estate pros are even turning to YouTube influencers to help them show off their listings. Last month, real estate pro Rochelle Mays turned to TikTok to create more buzz. I think TikTok is bullshit.
Well, in terms of actually selling a home, it's good.
So, let me ask you this: what level does social media play, and what is the best outlets
for
in
selling
social
a home?
media for selling a home today?
Yeah, I think YouTube is great. Instagram. I mean, listen, it comes down to any home. Well, first of all, that's nothing new. Like, right? Remember Cribs, MTV Cribs?
Yes.
There's people love.
It's
in terms of like what content people like to watch, just the lifestyles of the rich and famous has always been of interest, right?
Yeah.
That, babies, dogs, whatever else is big. I don't know. So it's nothing new. But now instead of Cribs, it's anyone could do it on YouTube. I think YouTube is great because you can build, you could do great video and build a big audience. Instagram's good. I mean, I guess probably YouTube might be the best.
I think it is the best. Yeah. So Facebook is shot. Unless you're running paid ads on Facebook, it's shot. Right. Facebook, the algorithm is so unfavorable to organic reach today. It's a problem. And to be honest, same thing with Instagram to a certain degree. I think Instagram not as much as Facebook, but it's hard to reach people on Instagram as it was in the beginning. Let's say when the organic reach was there. Paid ads on Facebook and Instagram, I think, are good and effective. You're going to reach your audience, but you're going to spend money. YouTube, I think, is television of the future. I don't know about you. My kids are all over YouTube. They do not watch a single. They do not watch a single cable television network channel. None of it. So, and it's easily accessible. You could watch things over and over. You're not on. Remember, as kids, we had to be in front of the TV at 6:30 on a Friday to see what was it, TGIF, right, whatever it was. No one does that anymore.
Right.
So I think this generation behind us, and in some respects is almost even right next to us. They're going lean on YouTube for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. They're not going to know any different. Smart TVs and YouTube. So I think, pumping content into that forum right now is the best way to do it to make some money. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. If you could build an audience by putting good content out, because it comes down to just exposure of the home, but to the right audience.
Yeah.
But if you build that audience, then yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's all we got today. Mike, what do you got? Anything? Nothing new?
That is it. I don't think anything really new, no. No.
Right. So we're good. Thanks for listening to our podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, 516-888-9711. And our email is info@pl-team.com. Thank you for your comment, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.